What used to be deconstructing you is now resonant truth, as we've both needed to come into so much more resonance than who we were a year ago when we tried to come in front of the microphone and speak our truth. But we needed to go through many funerals to be in much liminal states, call it what you want, so that we can land right here, right now, and speak with a truth that is resonant, so that the deeper parts of you that are listening, it's not going to be the ego mind that will cotton on or want to listen to this, but the deeper parts will hopefully keep you coming back so that you too can experience what it means to be in resonance with truth. I'm Eleanor Moshe, and I'm sitting here with not just the co-founder of Truth of You, but my partner, my everything person, Daniel.
Hi, I'm Daniel.
Daniel's been someone who has expanded my consciousness single-handedly. What he's offered over the past few years since we've met, and we did record an episode together. There is more to come on our journey. But in this episode, we want to explore why Resonant Truth is here. So one of the first reasons that we decided to maybe not relaunch the show, but to co-create Resonant Truth together is to explore the concept of truth itself. What does that mean, Daniel? What does the truth mean?
Everyone has a different answer for what they think the truth is, and that's where the mystery ultimately lies with it all as well. And unless we can even begin to explore mystery, then how can we bring it back to something that's both understandable and functional, not only for our lives, but even to our soul and beyond?
And that is something which you have such a profound ability, skill set, even that falls short, that you bring back things that are so rich, so profound. Density is the term that I like to say, and you do just bring it back. And this is really the language that we want to bring to Resonant Truth, is that maybe not so much digestible, but it's going to hit so hard. It's like throwing a spanner in a paradigm.
I think things will hit differently for different people.
Yeah.
Some will be relatively tame, others will be deeply confronting, especially when it comes to our own experiences and what we have to share as well.
Another aspect of Resonant Truth is, of course, exploring the concept of self. I remember when we started Truth of You, we would sit endlessly in the library and you would present different models of self and we would unpack these concepts. And even before we got together and started Truth of You, I would go to XYZ healing event and seek to find myself or lose myself. And it shook up everything that I thought of what it means to be a self and to have this experience and everything in between. And in order to even just land at this point to record this episode, how much of ourselves we have deconstructed, for lack of a better word.
Reminds me, with that models of the self, and the front cover had a GIF of Derek Zoolander from the movie Zoolander, going, "Who am I?" And it's so profound, because really it's really once we actually stop to question that we can even begin to understand that we were constructing our own identity our entire lives without even realizing that that's what we were doing. So being able to explore how we construct and even how we can deconstruct, so we can change and become not only more in alignment with, what our soul wants to be, but even at the surface level, we still get to choose who we want to be in this life as well.
There is so much more to say on that, and we'll be speaking to this far beyond conventional models, because as Daniel framed it for me, that conventional models only speak to conventional solutions or conventional pathways, and we have both far exhausted that. And another cornerstone of what Resonant Truth is here to provide is a language and a framework for the deeper parts of you. The experiences, individual and joint and also collective, that we go through doesn't fit in our frame of reference. It doesn't fit with the conventional language that we were given up until maybe 2 years ago. Words like suffering, disillusionment of self, identity suicide, healing, breathing, loving myself, or the terminology goes on and on. They didn't exist in my reference, in my framework. So how could I possibly have carried out or co-created a reality that was any different? And then there are, of course, layers of divination practices that we speak as well, which just make it so obvious from the right perspective that deeper parts of us can start to express.
And it's not even just about using divination itself, just understanding these as languages start to give you new models to connect with yourself much deeper, whether it's meditation, whether it's just looking at an astrology chart and interpreting it, or having someone interpret it for you, and just listening to what your unconscious wants to say about it. Because if you stop and listen, it really does either resonate or it doesn't. And that's a really great way that we can actually tune into ourselves as well, by even just educating, using these languages and these models and these frameworks for beginning to actually perceive ourselves in a whole new light.
There is, of course, so much more on offer, but we want to introduce ourselves. We are the co-founders of Truth of You. If you haven't connected or discovered us just yet, then welcome. I'm at the Eleanor Moshe on Instagram and Eleanor Moshe on LinkedIn.
And I'm the Daniel Darman on Instagram and Daniel Darman on LinkedIn.
We started Truth of You, and we'll share so much more about the conception journey and the year that was with Truth of You. And we're right now, as we record, on the precipice of participating in the Mind, Body, Spirit Festival, and we will be the ones bringing spirit to the festival. But that's also reflective of who we were in our life. There was a deep lack of spirit across many dimensions, across many parts of ourselves. So we ended up in our mid-30s, and I wouldn't say things were really happening for us, but I lifted the hood in my unconscious and everything was on fire.
Yeah, and most people think that problems resolve themselves, and we both learned in this life that that's not always the case.
And it is through Truth of You that it was not something that I could have done by myself, and it was not something that Daniel could have done by himself, and nor do we want to, but we'll speak to the business aspect in future episodes. But it's not just Truth of You that brought us together. It was our lifetimes of love, if you haven't listened to a prior episode, but it was a past life regression, a very fateful past life regression, which brought us together and unveiled the lifetimes of love. And this experience unto itself is in so much resonance to our truth, and we'll explore that in other episodes. Because when you know, there was a deep knowing. But yeah, I have so much to say on that, but I'll save that.
Stay tuned for that episode.
Stay tuned, yeah. But we're going to cross-interview each other quickly. Daniel, what cracked your reality open?
Mine first started in 2016 when I lost a lot of weight, about 30 kilos, and learned that nutrition science really was so contested. It was so poor. It was so unrefined, that I realized that the world itself really everything had to be questioned from there. And I never stopped, and to this day I'm still seeking, searching and exploring.
Your ability to ask questions is profound. That's one of the reasons I fell in love with you first, was you have the ability to ask a question that is so succinct, so to the point, so to the part that wants to answer. And I get discombobulated and I get frustrated, not at you, but at my own inability to answer the question. But the answers definitely present itself. So stay tuned, listeners, to those questions that are spanners in the paradigms.
So now to ask you, what cracked your reality first?
First spiritual breakdown happened in 2021. There was a lot playing out in the world, and that is also when we met. It was a moment of all external paradigms, all external towers, like referencing the tower card from the tarot coming down. And I thought I knew the truth. I now understand how everything works. But as within, so without, as above, so below. The mirror pointed to myself, and it was in 2023 that I also had a breakdown, realizing that, I'll call it a breakthrough now, but then it was a breakdown, that I came into full awareness that I do not exist in my reality, that I had given myself over and over again the Chiron wounding, the martyrdom, but we'll get to that, and realizing that I simply do not exist. And I looked myself dead straight in the eye, and I knew that I will get myself out. And it wasn't through not trying in the past, but many models did not go far enough and they failed me, and the unconscious forces came to aid. But more on that in future episodes. What keeps you in service, my love?
I've always been one to clean up my own mess. I've always been one to taper things off. I'm pretty good like that. Don't get me to start things, but I can be pretty good at finishing things that other people start. Call me a nitpicker, call me a perfectionist. It's not something I have to do, but it's something I've always naturally felt more skilled at than those around me. So I'd say what keeps me in service is just understanding the cycles of life, just understanding the fact that as you give, you receive. And this is always an exchange that's occurring not only with yourself, but with the universe as well. And so even with this podcast, it is its own act of service to give back to others who have provided to me, either cheap or even free, on my own journey. How about yourself? What's kept you in service?
January was a struggle period, and you were channeling, and you asked the profound question, how would you like to return the soul once this vehicle is done with it? And of course, I never thought about it from that perspective, because if I look at the condition of which the character called Eleanor got the soul, it had more than a few bumps. Its spiritual architecture was fried, or frame it however you want, but it was deeply disempowered across many lives. So the character that it's going to play afterwards, how is the soul going to continue onto its journey? This is such a profound responsibility that makes me want to dig deeper, find out more. What lives on the edges of self? What don't I understand? What haven't I come into awareness of? That is, of course, outside of my awareness or deep into the unconscious, because that is what is so fulfilling and what opens up portals, dimensions, call it what you want, that can't otherwise be accessed.
So what would you say then is the deepest truth you've come to know?
It was a sunny afternoon. No, I don't know what the weather was outside, but I fell into the void. And we will explore the void both on this podcast and in our upcoming book, More to Say. And that is only love is real. That's it. Only love is real.
Can you expand on that slightly?
That is the fabric of the universe. And if it is not foundationed on love, capital L love, not this manufactured, conditioned, performative, I have to give myself over to you to receive love, but the actual fabric of the universe, if it is foundationed on that, it is in alignment with what the universe wants. And if it is not foundationed on love, then it is bound to fall over. If not in this life, it will happen. It is also the laws of the universe. But the heart knows what is real and what is not. And when we tune into that and connect with what love really is, how reality changes. And your greatest truth, my love? That you've come to know?
Mine, hands down, is that I am infinite. Reality is infinite. Infinity is infinite. There's really not much else to say. When you can connect to just the principle of what infinity is, you can recognize that the answer to anything is possible, because you are everything.
We could end the whole show right here and just leave people to discover that on their own for the rest of their journey here. And if you're still listening, then we appreciate that. And what we want to clarify is this is not just another spiritual podcast with a whole lot of spiritual jargon and something that you may have experienced before, and parts may be already be in resonance, and that is a testament to your work, which is fantastic. But what's not on offer with Resonant Truth? And the first one is the answer, the truth. Daniel, why aren't we giving them the truth and the answer?
Because people always think the truth is singular. People always think it can be reduced into one thing. That's even why there's a redundancy when I said infinity is infinite. Because even itself can't be localized as well. And that's one of the greatest mysteries as well that have to be accepted. That even though, we're doing work with distinguishing truth with a capital T, which is the absolute truth, which is infinity, and then lower T truth, which is every subjective truth we can interpret and construct. Every truth that the human can understand is a lower T truth. The truth itself, the real capital T truth that everyone is trying to work these little truths up into, can never be localized as a single answer. And so even though we can give small t truths along the way, and they can point towards the big T truths, the answer can never be given in its totality, because reality is always changing. We're always changing. The truth is always changing. The answer is always changing.
And if you have been on any social media platform of recent, there is a lot of spiritual entertainment.
Eleanor, you've mentioned this as spiritual junk food. Care to explain on that for the listeners?
Same as eating a bag of nachos. We don't feel good in the moment. Maybe we do for a microsecond, but we know it's not good for us.
I feel good for about a good 10-15 minutes.
And then afterwards, you're just dealing with the consequences. And there is a lot of fast food, quick fixes, quick hacks. It looks good. Performative spirituality is, you just need to scroll for a couple of minutes and you will find spirituality being performed. But it's also found in the mundane. This is not a performance. And this isn't something that you do to look good or feel good. There is so much more found in the descent. And this isn't just to entertain new ideologies or things that we've read. There is so much more to the path that needs to be unraveled and distilled, because a lot of what is out there is misleading. What's also not on offer is steps. And that, as you just said, as we were planning this episode, the truth neatly packaged for mass export. We cringe now at things that are, the 5 steps to this, and you can learn how to understand yourself in 10 steps. And, whilst there is a place for needing to, if you're working with someone, how long is a piece of string, or giving them some sense of direction, the map is not the territory. And the truth is not something that can just be delivered so perfectly, beautifully.
I mean, it can for one individual, but that's probably because they've figured that out for themselves. Mm-hmm. And that goes back to what we were saying with the answer. Yeah, it can be neat to have languages and models and frameworks, but at the same time, they only exist within the construct of your own perception and awareness. They ultimately are feeding into larger truths that they then no longer apply. For example, when we try and map ourselves psychologically, most people aren't considering the unconscious choices that they've made in previous lives and how it might affect them in this life, at a very deep undertone level, such as maybe their level of affluence, or if they're too selfless, or they carry a victim narrative at a deeper level.
Speaking to the unconscious, we live in this space. Sometimes a bit too much, sometimes not enough. We're also seeking to understand the seasons and how deep we can actually go. But this is one of the primary themes that we will be exploring. And as Daniel alluded to, past lives. What does that entail? What does that even mean for you in this life? But it goes far deeper than that. We'll also be exploring the identity, the ego, and the myth of self.
Again, you're incarnated. You come here to live a life, and as I mentioned before, we're constructing an identity until we ultimately become self-aware enough to realize that that's what we were doing for years, decades, always without question. Most people fall into the scripts they're given without a second thought. And this is where even having lifetimes where what you're presented with goes against those scripts as well. It goes against the core of who you are as well, and you can spend a lifetime attempting to go against, to challenge and to overcome them. And it's a very tough life versus others that go with the flow and it works for them. So identity and the construct of ego itself as the persona is not only just one that we want to explore in its conventional sense, but we really want to get deeper into how identity is even constructed.
And this goes far beyond a mental exercise, but through these core themes of Resonant Truth, bringing this to your awareness, because otherwise you may be working with a limited framework and limited reference points as we were. We'll also be talking about energetics, frequency, and subtle laws, as well as spiritual law and cosmic order. What we both experienced through our own lives was when the natural order of life was not able to progress, how that stunts not just the human, but the spirit as well, and everything in between.
And not even just stunting the growth, but how the spirit is also planning and preparing other ways for growth once those initial conditions are met.
Mm-hmm. We alluded to it at the start as well, that giving you language, giving you more ability to access terms and phrases that can frame your experience in a way that allows you to connect with it first. And perception. Sometimes in order to understand something that is manifest so simply in the 3D, you'll need to go cosmic in your perception. And we will of course be exploring inner authority. I mentioned at the start that I was not centered in my own reality. I didn't exist there. How could that be the case? Another theme is
desire.
Yeah.
How do you know what you want?
Outside of the ego. Outside of the script.
Well, that's it as well.
Yeah.
I mean, we think we want something, but how do we know if we really want it? I've had experiences, especially under hypnosis, where you think you like eating this certain style, or you think you like drinking coffee, for example, was a big one for me. And my unconscious said he does not like it. And that was a rude awakening, because I had a nice coffee machine, and
I see the Italian in you just like, putting their fingers together and shaking their hand at the unconscious.
It was, yeah. It wasn't even up for question before that moment.
And a big part of coming to truth is death, disillusion, and sacred endings. This is something that Daniel is very comfortable with, and on my path, even just the whole understanding of death. And I'm reading a book at the moment called Living Our Dying, and what that actually means. As soon as this episode is over, it is also a death of something, but this goes far deeper. So all of this wrapped up in Resonant Truth is going to leave you feeling challenged, deeply challenged.
We're not here to necessarily make you feel comfortable. This is one that, as we attempt to explore the deeper truths, is ones that ultimately are going to have to push you beyond your limits as well. So to feel challenged by this is a necessary confrontation as well.
And the parts that you did not want to look at, they're the parts that leave in the unconscious. We mentioned that a few times now, and that is pointing in the direction of everything that is outside of your awareness. And that could be located in the right here, right now. That could be in another dimension. It all remains to be seen and explored. But feeling discombobulated, that happens often, especially when you're posed with a question that you're trying to starve off and push away into another dark corner of your existence. But eventually it all comes bubbling to the surface. And that's why we're here.
And it goes back to that Zoolander meme of, who am I? He was completely discombobulated in that moment because, again, the illusion came down. The narratives that he had held, once he didn't have that feeling of not even knowing where he was something that was quite strong. And this is something that we've both experienced as well, and really needed serious grounding to be able to come back and to continue moving forward.
And that's another thing, being able to come back with all of this after being in this space. And we will continue to guide you through that in future episodes. We hope to have you join us for the first dismantling, the first funeral. We made a bold promise that every episode is a funeral for a lie. And in the next episode, we're going to be dismantling I am who I think I am. So for the resonance that lives within you, that is yearning for the truth in a reality that you might be experiencing right now, which is lesser than, that is disorientating, that is, you don't even know how you feel anymore. This podcast is here to guide you into the descent of what is on offer deep within you, first and foremost. If you love what you're listening to, then invite someone else to be on this path with you. It does not have to be walked alone, but ultimately, only you exist in this reality. Until the next episode, discover the truth of you, because you are too big to be this small.